Brian, I'm glad to see you got your FleetFix conversion. Let's get in here and see what's in here. So we see we got 5 gallons of the actual conversion. So this kit does enough for 5 vehicles. So in here we have the instruction guide.
Okay.
This tells you step by step on how to go through the system here. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull a sample out of the truck. We're going to use a refractometer to check the freeze point.
Okay.
And make sure that the concentration is within the range of having a freeze point of 0 degrees Fahrenheit to -60. What we'd like to do next is actually correct the freeze point. We have a table here that shows over and under concentrated and what the proper correction rate is.
Okay. So basically what we're doing first is correcting the freeze point before we do any of the conversion.
Yes, we're going to correct the freeze point first.
All right, so take my sample, use a refractometer, correct my freeze point, and then where do I go from there?
Yeah, after we correct the freeze point to -34, we're going to use the test strips, and we're going to measure both pH and nitrite levels in this current system. So you can see that there's 2 scales, and what we want is the nitrite level to be ideally between 500 and 3,000 parts per million, and we want to have a pH of 7.5 or greater. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drain down approximately 1 gallon out of the system, or enough to fit a gallon of the product in for a 9 to 12 gallon system.
Okay.
We're going to add that into the system, and we're going to let that circulate. After we fully circulate it, we're going to take a sample.
All right. So 5 in here, just like the other, enough for 5 trucks.
There's enough for 5 trucks. So we have a sample bottle in here, and we also have a label. And on this label, after we pull the sample, we want to make sure that we fill out the label as much detail as possible. So we have the company and where it's from, and most importantly, you have the unit ID, sample date, and all the information on the vehicle itself. And this gives you a baseline of, after it's converted, what the system is like.
Okay.
And it also lets you know if we converted it successfully or unsuccessfully.
So what's a normal time frame of you guys contacting us back and letting us know this type of stuff?
The analysis takes approximately a week, and you can receive the analysis back via email, which I believe for Schneider it'll end up going to Mark Guard, and then Mark Guard will disseminate the information back down to where it needs to go to. And the last step of the process is we identify your system as being converted.
All right, so I need to get a coolant sample on this.
Yes, the first step is we've got to take a coolant sample. With that sample, we're going to take a refractometer reading, and we're also going to use a test strip to check the pH and the nitrite levels. So you need enough in there to do those. It's probably about 20 to 30 milliliters on the bottle, roughly up to about there.
So about half a bottle. So I got a sample here. There we go. All right, so I can see we're right at -34 degrees here.
Perfect.
That's right where you told me we needed to be.
That's where we need to be.
So if I saw like a -50 or a +10, I would go by this chart here?
Yes, we would then use the chart and we adjust the system back to a 50-50 or -34. So our next step is to do a test strip.
So you're going to dip this strip in.
Correct.
And we're going to measure the pH.
There you go.
So pH is which tab?
Nitrite is the lower tab, pH is the upper tab.
Okay.
So we're going to dip it in there, and then we're going to let it sit for 25 seconds for the pH and 1 minute for the nitrite.
So it's been about 25 seconds. And it looks to me we're close to that top.
Correct. So the pH is roughly 8.
So that would mean the pH is not too low.
Right, that's good to move
not
forward
acidic.
with. That's correct.
Okay.
That's good.
So now that I've waited a minute here for the nitrite, so I'm going to take that and put up there like probably 200 or so. And I know the longer we wait on this, the darker it gets. So that's why it's critical to check that right after the minute there.
Absolutely. So in the instruction booklet, there's a log that we can actually log our results in.
Okay. So I'd come in here and vehicle ID number, engine make. Our freeze point was -34, it passed.
Right.
Our pH passed. And basically the example it gives up here of, pass and low, that's what we had. We had a low nitrate.
That's
result.
right.
All right.
So the next step is to make room for a gallon of the FleetFix conversion.
Is it always a gallon?
It's a gallon for 9 to 12 gallons of system size.
Okay.
So if you have a smaller vehicle, it would be less. If you have a larger vehicle, it would be greater.
Okay. So I'm looking at, if a gallon won't fit, I got to drain a gallon.
That's correct. You
But
gotta
if
make
my
room
surge
for it.
tank's already low,
Then you can just add it directly.
all right, so I've drained the gallon out, like you told me. So at this point, I want to take the FleetFix and pour the entire gallon into my surge tank.
Yes, you want to have the whole entire gallon for the 9 to 12 gallon system for the proper concentration of additives in there.
And if I haven't drained enough, I need to drain some more.
Then you'll need to drain a little bit more, so make sure you get the whole
Gallon in there. And if I've drained too much,
Then you would top off with the Chevron Delo ELC 5050.
okay. So we started off with our initial sample, and it passed.
Correct.
So we adjust the freeze protection first.
That's the first step.
And if I had to adjust that, we would circulate that, take a second sample,
That's correct.
right? And in that second sample, we'd go through and measure our nitrate and our pH level.
That's correct.
If it's anywhere less than 3,000, do I have to do anything?
You're acceptable. We do have a low level on there. We want you to duly note that in your logs and your maintenance records,
Right.
so that you can track that unit to make sure that nitrite is not mechanically depleting on you for some reason.
But your kit will cover 0 up to 3,000.
When you put the FleetFix conversion in there, it gets the necessary dose of nitrites that the Chevron Delo ELC 5050 has, which is roughly 580 parts per million.
Okay, so we've drained a gallon out,
Correct?
and we've added the FleetFix.
Correct.
So at this point, we crank it up to operating temperature.
Get it circulating through the whole system, and then we'll let it cool down
Okay.
to a manageable temperature.
And that's where this comes in.
And then we're going to take a sample to send into the laboratory.
I've ran the engine up to operating temp. Operating temp would be thermostats opening, and different engines might be different temperatures. So we've got the engine warm, we've got it circulated, we've let it cool back down. I want to carefully bleed off the pressure off this tank here,
Correct.
right? And it's done cool down, and there's just a little bit on there. So I need to get a sample from what you're telling me. So we
Yeah.
got to send this in, and it's probably going to take me a while with this little thing. So
Right.
I'm going to go down bottom where I drained it to get my sample.
Okay.
But our coolant was pink when we started, and we added red.
And we added red. So this product should be a version in between your pink and our red.
Okay.
And as you top off, it'll become more and more red as it becomes 100% Delo ELC 5050. If you started off with a different product, such as a green color or a purple color, it is likely that when you add the red color of the FleetFix conversion, that you will get a brown color in there. A lot of times mechanics treat that as rust, but in this case it is just a color and it's not indicative of the quality of the coolant that's actually in there.
Okay.
Now that we got our sample, we need to fill out the paperwork that goes in the sample, making sure that you cover the company and your address, as well as the unit ID and the sample date and other information off the engine.
Okay. Miles an hour on coolant.
If you know what the miles are on the coolant, then it's a great starting record point to know what we have going into it
On
for
the
both
existing
Schneider
coolant
and
was in
Chevron. Absolutely.
So if I did a complete change with the flush, it'd be 0 miles.
it would be 0,
Okay. So I'd take all this information that I filled out,
right?
put it with my bottle,
Correct?
and no need for a label on the outside
No
because
need
it's
for a
already
label.
there. Is there anything special with the cap to seal it? You just put it on
Just
there?
put it on there, and it's good to go. Last thing is we got to label our unit that we've actually converted it.
Okay. So I can come in here and put my date. And
Find a safe place to adhere that to.
radiator shroud's where we want to put it with Snyder. All done?
All done?
Pretty simple.
Nice. Good.
Appreciate the instruction.
Excellent.